Hey everyone, welcome to High Energy Girl, a podcast helping women to age stronger because it is never too late to get fit, be strong, and feel sexy. I'm your host, Tracy Gluhide, health coach and personal trainer and founder of highenergygirl.com. Each week, we will either have a guest interview, which will provide you encouragement or an actionable tip to help you age stronger, or I will do a solo episode. Please also join our awesome Facebook group called High Energy Girls, and I'm looking forward to see you on the inside of that group and hope you enjoy today's show. Create Whole Body Wellness, a powerful new advancement in energy medicine. Increase your energy, empower your life. I am super excited to announce that I am now a bioenergetics practitioner. And many people are like, well, what is bioenergetics? So imagine that our body is controlled by our energy field, and these fields get distortions and blockages, which create physical and emotional symptoms. So how do we get energy blockages? From stress, toxins, EMFs, emotional traumas, physical scars, and physical traumas. All you need to do is decode the human body field to get to the root cause and restore your energy for life. For more information, head on over to the blog at highenergygirl.com/bioenergetics with an X. That's BIOENERGETIX, and heal your energy for life. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of High Energy Girl. And today's beautiful guest is Dr. Jessie Hehmeyer. She is the physician founder of Well Empowered, where she practices data-driven, outcome-oriented functional medicine. She created Well Empowered with one commitment in mind, providing you the foundation of health and vitality that transforms your experience of life and alters what is possible for you. Well, that sounds awesome. So welcome to the show, Dr. H.
Thank you so much, Tracy. It's a pleasure to be here with you and your tribe.
Awesome. Well, you just sparked me your interest with that, transforming the experience of life and altering what is possible, because as a biohacker, we're always trying to see what can make our performance better and our experience better. So I look forward to hearing from you.
Awesome.
So,
yes.
For the listeners that don't know you yet, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. So my name is Jessie Hehmeyer, aka Dr. H. And like you said, Tracy, I practice data-driven, outcome-oriented functional medicine, also known as natural medicine, so natural solutions. I work with people in a wide variety, dealing with a wide variety of health challenges and conundrums, everything from, years and decades of struggling with mastering their weight, hormones gone wackadoodle, fertility challenges. Yeah, wackadoodle is a technical word in case you were wondering. With skin challenges, digestive distress, all of those different things. And really, when I partner with people, our work is identifying the root cause of the health challenges, symptoms, conditions, conundrums, and addressing it using a natural approach. Now, oftentimes I partner with people who do prescribe medication because I really do believe we want to grab the best of all the toolkits to express our maximum health. So I feel like this is a great moment in time where we're starting to see a shift in approach that is much more collaborative, right? There's much less fighting, my way's right, your way's wrong, and vice versa. And there's much more of conversations grounded in how do we care for this person? And it's just a real privilege to do this work.
That's awesome. Now, did you start on this path? Did you always want to do the more natural approach, or did you transition over there?
So I say straight lines are boring. So no, I did not start on this path. After graduating, I went to UCLA undergrad. And so like you, I was a Cali girl. Well, you've always been a Cali girl. I was a Cali girl for about 6 years, loved every second of it. And after I graduated, living out there, I worked as a physical therapy aide. And then when I moved back to Chicago, I opened up the first high intensity strength training boutique facility in the city, and was the managing partner there for about 4 years, from 2002 till 2006, when I sold my half, knowing that I wanted to learn more and elevate my ability to contribute to people. And for me, health has always been a focal part of my life. My mom at a young age really inspired my 3 brothers and me to love our bodies and our health and be curious about how they work. And my dad as well. But my mom was more of the driving force around that health conversation. And as a result, 2 of my brothers are MDs. I'm a natural medicine practitioner. So she really, we really did catch it at an early age. But ultimately at that point, when I sold my half, I knew I wanted to learn more and expand my ability to contribute. And so I went on to get my doctorate in chiropractic and then my master's of science in nutrition and functional medicine. So that's, the academic path of how I landed where I am. And, for me, it's always been a journey of, okay, how can I make a difference with people in their health? And then at a certain point, okay, what other tools do I need in order to expand the contribution I'm able to make?
Okay, cool. So what do you find is the most common symptoms that you're presented with in women at your practice currently?
Most common include weight loss resistance. In other words, they've been struggling with their weight for years or decades, and they just can't seem to crack that code. And number 2 would be all things digestive related, whether it's gas, bloating, constipation, diarrhea, all those things. Some people have already been diagnosed with something like ulcerative colitis or Crohn's disease, or an actual autoimmune disorder. And then some people, they've been diagnosed with, an IBS sort of thing. And other people have no idea, right? They just come, they've been struggling with their digestion for a long time, and they're looking for a good solution. And then the third, most common thing I see people for is hormones. So definitely a lot of people related to fertility, and a lot of people, either before they're thinking about getting pregnant, struggling with their menstrual cycle. Either it's absent or irregular, or they're incapacitated for a week to 2 weeks, a month, given by their period, by their menstrual cycle, or, heading into menopause, the symptoms that go with it. So weight, digestion, hormones.
Thank goodness I am 12 years post-menopause. Oh,
well, you sure don't look it. So you're doing lots of things right there. That's awesome.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, that's like my claim to fame. I got through it unscathed. I was 45 when I finished, and it was just like, nice. This is good stuff. So let's start with the first one. So what do you find is one of your most common root causes when it comes to women struggling with their weight?
Well, one thing I'll just start with in saying what it's not, because a lot of people be listening to that question and saying, thyroid, I know it's your thyroid, right? And the truth is, it's very rarely the thyroid, which is interesting, right? So I know people really want it to be the thyroid because they feel like, okay, if it's my thyroid, there's a quick fix answer. And the truth is 90% of the time, maybe it's 85, it's not the thyroid. And even when it is the thyroid, it's never just the thyroid, right? So there are a few different things that I see as common root causes of, I call it having, your metabolism has its foot on the brake, right? It's your metabolism is really slow, and we're trying to figure out what's at the source of it. One is elevated inflammation, and I'll say a little bit more about that in a moment, but elevated inflammation is number 1. Number 2 is suboptimal insulin sensitivity, suboptimal. And number 3 is compromised detoxification. So elevated inflammation, suboptimal insulin sensitivity, and, compromised detoxification. And, all of these we can assess, right? In that first camp of elevated inflammation, I call it data driven because we get the information. We're not just throwing darts, right? And so sometimes people have symptoms that lead them to say, I feel inflamed. But more often than not, people don't feel inflammation. We only know their body is chronically chronically inflamed by getting numbers. And so in the world of inflammation, the number one thing I check over and over and over again in people is called HSCRP, which stands for high sensitivity C-reactive protein. It's a measurement of chronic inflammation. So that's one measurement. There are others I test, but that is one that I definitely put as our number one. Let's make sure we got that number. And I like to see it under 2. So anything over 2 is going to cause your body to go into calorie conservation, AKA fat storage mode. So elevated inflammation equals fat storage, period, right? And the next thing that I mentioned was that suboptimal insulin sensitivity. And the thing about that is optimal is a far cry from a disease state. In other words, lab normal for insulin for fasting insulin, lab ranges are typically around 18 or 20, above that is considered abnormal. For me, I want to see it under 8. If it's over 8 or even just kind of approaching 8, we've got some work to do to help your cells hear the message of insulin better. Because as that insulin increases, there are a few things that are happening. One is you're just straight up producing more, and you're producing more because your cells, it's kind of like their ears are plugged, and their ears are plugged because it's like insulin is ringing the doorbell over and over and over and over again. And finally your cells are like, la, 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 I can't hear you, So we want to help your body become more sensitive to the message of insulin. So that's number 2. And again, insulin measurable, fasting insulin, super easy to check in a blood test. And then that last one, those detox pathways that are compromised, or I like to say gunked up, a few different things that make me think about that. One is if someone is chronically constipated, right? If there's a great saying, we're not just what we eat, we're what we don't excrete. So what we don't excrete, we reabsorb, and we're supposed to get our toxins out of our body in our bowel movements and in our urine. And so if we're not getting them out of our body, we are reabsorbing them. So that's one way. Another way that, there are fancy assessments for detox pathways, but these are just a few things that your listeners could kind of grab onto to kind of answer the question, could this be something for me? Could it be, right? Another one is acne, right? Because our skin is a primary detoxification organ. So if we're chronically detoxing, so to speak, if our toxins are overloaded, then it might show up in our skin. And then, just kind of assessing our diet. Our diet's one thing, and in particular, looking at the toxins we're exposed to or not. The number one being alcohol for most people, right? If we're drinking alcohol daily, or really for women, more than 4 drinks a week, which isn't that much, right? That can be suggestive of more toxins than optimal for your body. And then there's looking at the nutrients that are required for those pathways, those detox pathways to work well, which is all part of the healing process when I work with people.
Okay, so you've said a lot that I want to kind of break up. So yes. HSCRP, is that a different form of CRP, or is that just the more extended way of saying it?
It is a slightly different form. So CRP is still good, but HS, that stands for high sensitivity. It just means it's a little more accurate, right? It's going to be a little more precise. Now, there have been times where someone has come to me with lab results, and for whatever reason, their provider decided to do both a CRP and an HSCRP, which I actually thought was interesting because I was like, oh, I've always kind of wondered, and they are different, but not hugely, right? It's not like I would expect a CRP to be 1.2 and an HSCRP to be 6. That would be very strange. So CRP is still good. HSCRP is better, more accurate.
So it's interesting because it's my experience that traditionally doctors don't check CRP on a basic lab run. Like if you're just going for your well check or whatever,
Yes.
They don't check for that.
Yeah, they definitely don't. And I would say this is with, I would suspect why they don't is that they don't have a solution for it. Right. So I think it's useful to understand what tools we each have in our toolkit, right? If someone has their appendix burst, they should not come see me. They should go immediately to the ER. I do not have the tool needed for that moment, right? But on the flip side, it's useful for people to understand that when they go to their GP, it's unlikely they have the tool called natural remedies, right? Whether it's nutrition or effective supplementation or lifestyle, right? They might have a very surface level recommendation of, clean up your diet, something like that, which is very non-specific and not really useful for most people. But they're just not trained in that. And that's okay. We just want to know that, right? They do lots of great things. They just don't have this tool in their toolkit.
Yeah. Well, I'm not even going to go there, but I will ask you the next question. So insulin, they usually check for glucose, not insulin. Mm-hmm. Is that correct? And why would that be?
It is true that they usually check for glucose and not insulin, and I would also say because they're looking at it from a disease perspective, right? To them, there would be nothing to do unless glucose is sufficiently elevated to start them on medication, or maybe they might be saying, quote unquote, change your diet, right? But the fasting glucose is just insufficient, right? Fasting glucose, we're specifically talking about the disease called diabetes when we think about diseases related to glucose or insulin. When we're only talking about and others, insulin, I think about PCOS also. So there's certainly something on the hormonal front there. But with these, from a traditional medicine standpoint, it's a little bit black or white. Okay, maybe they're interested in knowing if someone is pre-diabetic, but they're not probably really going to do anything until someone's diabetic, and then they'll start them on metformin or, whatever. But diabetes doesn't happen overnight. And moreover, our body changes over time. So being able to see a change that is not expressive of health and at least on the trajectory to a disease gives us that opportunity to interrupt it. Right? We can turn the ship around. and so catching it early, our body still has resilience in it. But at a certain point, it's like, two things, physiologically speaking, it becomes much more difficult. It's not impossible, but much more difficult to make changes. And then habitually as a human being, right? If someone is all the way to the point of being a full-blown diabetic, they have a few decades of habits that led them to that place. Mm-hmm. And to undo those, there definitely are some people who have the holy cow wake up call and just, on a dime change things, but it's not the majority of people.
And I find that in a traditional doctor's office, they are more about insulin management instead of wellness to reverse everything. At least that's my experience with clients that, what their doctor and the RD in the doctor's office recommends.
Yes.
To actually help this woman, just do an about face. Like you said, turn the ship. That's a good one. But but there's practices that can be done. So I'm totally with you on all of that. And as for the gut health, so I know that gut health is a big topic in the wellness circles right now, and it's a big thing. I would love to know some things that you recommend to help people with gut health and preventative measures.
Yeah, well, so for me, most of my work right now is one-on-one and very customized, right? So
Of
when
course.
I'm working with people, we start with a real thorough assessment, and the most common assessments as it pertains to gut health are a comprehensive microbiome assessment, aka a poop test, and it's a 3-day assessment. In other words, the people are collecting for 3 days, once a day for 3 days. Yeah, and it's a very specialized way of looking at the microbiome, well beyond what bacteria are there or not. It gives us so much information that we just cannot get in any other way. It helps me understand how someone is their pancreas working well? Are they producing sufficient bile acid? Are they bile salts? Are they producing are they breaking up their proteins well? All these different things that helps me understand. Is there elevated inflammation specifically within their GI tract, which is a red flag for something else going on, like ulcerative colitis or Crohn's disease? We can get all that from this very amazing microbiome assessment.
Wow.
The other thing that I'll do with some regularity is a food sensitivity assessment. And with that, we want to make sure we're getting the full picture. In other words, there are some food sensitivity tests that just look at one way of reacting. The food sensitivity test that I like to do looks at 4 different ways of reacting.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So we want to get a really thorough picture. But in the big scheme of things, like, okay, what are some things that help us care for our microbiome? One is making sure it's getting a lot of fiber, because the good bacteria in our gut, that is their favorite food, fiber. Making sure that we're not loading it up with sugar and simple carbs, because those things feed an unhealthy microbiome. In other words, they fertilize bugs that wreak havoc on our body and our health. Those are, and then, being mindful of alcohol consumption. Those are a few just high level things that I can't think of anyone who wouldn't benefit from that, really.
Do you like psyllium husk? My husband is this massive fan of psyllium.
That is funny. I don't usually use psyllium in the way of a few things. One, I would say some fibers tend to cause gas and bloating more so than others. So sometimes I'll turn to something called sun fiber, which tends to be a little bit less likely to cause reactions to people. With that, I would say the microbiome assessment can help us understand which form of fiber is going to be most useful for the person. And then, of course, I'm going to be encouraging, fiber from food sources. That's usually it's just easy. If you just learn a few fiber hacks, go a long way.
What's a fiber hack?
Just sneaking in fiber in something that, you would be eating and enjoying, and you just end up making a shift so that you get more fiber than you would have. Other words, for example, doing a bean pasta instead of a rice pasta or a, regular wheat pasta. That bean pasta is a great fiber hack. And I will tell you, for those of you who might be a little bit skeptical about how you'd like this, I fed bean pasta to my nephews when they were 5 and 7, and they didn't even know. So that's a pretty darn good test to little kiddos who didn't notice that I fed them bean pasta. But that's an example. You can get bean chips. So if you're someone who needs a little salty crunch and would otherwise reach for a tortilla chip, bean field is my personal favorite, but bean chips that's a nice little fiber hack. Finding stuff like that, places, where can you add a tablespoon of flax meal or a tablespoon of chia seeds? stuff like that.
I love chia seeds. I have
Yes.
found though, and maybe you can even elaborate on this, that ground chia is actually better because I've heard that the full chia, even if they're already fully gelatinized, can get stuck in like little spots in your intestines.
Yeah, you're totally right, Tracy. There is some concern about that. Any of those like little things that, especially for someone who has a little diverticuli, is what you're speaking to. That those little things can get stuck in there. And both for flaxseed and flax meal, I do agree. I prefer them ground, and also, they're pretty tricky to break down. So having them ground up, your body's going to get the benefits of them a little more readily too. I'm also, just from a flavor perspective, when I make smoothies, I like a thicker smoothie. I call it a spoonable smoothie. And chia is a great way to do that. If you throw chia in a smoothie with like blackberries and raspberries, it's like, you could eat it out of a bowl if you wanted to.
Oh, I might like it better if I did that. I always put spinach because I don't do a lot of sugar at all. Like,
yes.
Hardly no sugar, but that's a really good idea because like what my new favorite thing is, I get that almond milk yogurt, the unsweetened almond milk, and I'm a CrossFitter. So my goal is to get my protein macros and, hard to fit in, but is taking a scoop of my favorite protein powder with almond milk yogurt and then adding stuff like chia seeds or hemp seeds or ground flax or something to that. But I love that idea to make like a smoothie, add the chia, then I'll get my spinach in there.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Awesome. So going back to the weight loss, I think that people love hearing about weight loss and different things. So can you tell us like an example of a life in or a day in your life of what types of wellness habits you've incorporated, being that, you're an expert?
Sure. Absolutely. Well, for me, definitely foundational to everything is how I feel my body. And it sounds like the same is true for you, Tracy. Right. And so, and the other thing I would say is, as I share, your listeners, all of you are going to be in different places in your life. And just know, for me, this has been a journey too. What I do today is so different than what I did 20 years ago. I mean, it's just so different. It makes me laugh. Right. So, my encouragement is to start where you are, really honor the truth of your current experience, and to be in the inquiry of what is my next best step. But I'm happy to share. So, first of all, I am a big believer in bookending days with some kind of mindfulness activity. And there's so many different ways we can scratch that itch, and it really doesn't need to take a lot of time, right? It can take 3 minutes. It can take 30 seconds if you're really, really pressed. Your kids are yelling, you're trying to get out the door to get your workout in, whatever. 30 seconds, it's amazing what that can do over and over and over and over again versus nothing. Right. So for me, I really start my day connecting to my intention for my health and my life. And with that, start to move about my day. I am someone who feels best when I have breakfast. I know some people feel best when they skip it. I feel best when I eat it. So my breakfast is always going to be protein, fat focused. So if it's a smoothie, similar to you, I'm pretty low on the sugar scale, right? So maybe I'll do a 1/4 cup of berries in my smoothie, but I'll have about 20 grams of protein in there and those healthy fats. That might be my breakfast, or it might be a couple of eggs with some avocado. On the weekends, if I have leftover roasted veggies, sometimes I'll put my eggs on top of leftover roasted veggies. And to me, that is like the most decadent, wonderful meal ever. Like,
I love that. That's what I eat. Like, I eat 3 eggs and avocado every day. If I have roasted veggies, they're part of it too. That is hilarious.
Yes. And then, lunch is going to be salad. It's going to be, I love a huge salad, like lots and lots of greens. Again, typically leftover veggies from the night before, whatever I've made, go on top of my greens. Avocado goes on top of it, some kind of protein, at least 20 grams worth, go on top of it. I'm someone who I like to eat my fat versus using a dressing. So I'd rather go heavy-handed with the avocado versus spending calories, so to speak, on a dressing. That's just me. And I share that so that people can start to think about like, well, what's true for me? Maybe you really do get a lot of joy out of the dressing. And so there is, because fat is calorie dense, and calories aren't the whole story, but they are part of the story. You just want to be thinking about how do I want to spend it? What brings me joy, right? Mm-hmm. So that's a common lunch. Sometimes I'll have a mid-afternoon snack. Sometimes I won't. That just varies depending on how long it is till dinner and how hungry I am, things like that. And then dinner, inevitably, it is, a protein. So it could be salmon, it could be chicken, it could be turkey, it could be a burger on greens, and then lots of veggies. I don't do tons of grains. Once in a while, I'll do a little bit of black rice. On my salad, oftentimes I'll sprinkle some lentils or some kind of bean. And that's it, really.
Well, it sounds good. My new favorite protein, well, not new, but my favorite protein right now is bison. Oh my gosh. Yes. I just love it. So tender and easy to eat. Your nutrition sounds like mine. One other thing to add to the salad that I love is pumpkin seeds. So sprouted pumpkin seeds.
Nice. Great source of zinc too. Yeah.
Well, also I found out that their parasites do not like pumpkin seeds. And that's one of my big hot buttons right now. So I add them every opportunity I can.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. Yep.
So a question for you. So you're in Chicago. Do you see patients remotely?
Well, so funny enough, Tracy, I am actually, as we're speaking right now, in Chicago, but I work remotely. So my husband and I actually live in Switzerland. So,
what?
I know. It's just funny, right? This is just the way of the world, right? So we moved there for my husband's job, and I am so grateful to have a job that can go with me there too. So we live in Lucerne, and so I work out of my office in Lucerne, and so I don't see people in person.
So what do you do for lab work? Do you send it? I mean, I'm assuming most of your clients are here right now.
Yes, all of my clients are here in the States, and whether I was here or not, I send them to Quest. So that actually doesn't really change. I place the order, we get them set up with an appointment at Quest. Sometimes if people want, we'll have a phlebotomist come to their house to do the blood draw, which is like such a lovely luxury. But we do that sometimes. And then these specialty lab kits, microbiome assessment, food sensitivity, adrenal, stuff like that. These are all kits that people complete in their home anyway.
And it still goes to Quest?
Those go to different companies, but they come in a prepaid FedEx label. So people just need to seal it up, put the label on it, and drop it.
Oh, cool.
Or schedule a pickup. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, okay. Can you also address the deal with the thyroid? Like, why do you feel like everybody is concerned about the thyroid? And is that like a real... I mean, you said it's only 85 to 90% do not have an issue. Why has that been everybody's thoughts?
Well,
I don't get it.
I mean, the thing is, here's the thing about the thyroid. It is a very common autoimmune disorder, like hypothyroidism, Hashimoto's, and then overactive would be Graves' disease, which is less common. But, it is among autoimmune disorders. I would suspect it's number one. I'm pretty sure I have that fact right. But it's certainly, 1-2 spot. And so it is very common. And, when people don't have answers, like when they're beating their head against the wall and everybody's like, oh, thyroid metabolism, like, please let it be my thyroid. It totally makes sense that people think it would be or hope it would be. It's just that it's not the full story, right? It's just not. Even when someone's thyroid is not working well, it's not like fixing it handles weight, right? So it's a funny thing where people won't really be able to lose weight without addressing their thyroid appropriately, but addressing their thyroid appropriately isn't the only thing. In other words, it's not like, okay, wow, voila, it's been done, So, if someone needs to be on thyroid medication or thyroid support is necessary, absolutely, we're going to make sure that happens. But it's just, I've never seen a situation where it's the only thing that's needed to have someone arrive at a weight that they feel they're best at.
Okay. And then what about adrenals?
Yeah, I mean, adrenals, I think about these systems of our body a little bit like a pyramid. And so the adrenals live at a level below the thyroid. So definitely there's a dance there. And when we support the adrenals, we're going to have a positive benefit on all the systems that are upstream, up the pyramid, which include the thyroid and sex hormones. So definitely, to your point, even if someone is getting on thyroid medication, we're going to do some work to support the adrenals.
Is there something underneath those?
Some people say the endocannabinoid system is beneath those, the ECS. So that's like, where CBD oil comes in. And there could be some truth to that. They definitely, at the very least, it dances with the adrenals.
That's something that people aren't addressing, is the endocannabinoid system. I mean, honestly, I never even knew it existed until maybe a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Did you study that in school at all?
Actually, when I was in school, it was not a conversation. I'm sure it is now, right? But it's just emerging, right? It's emerging with the legalization, first the medical legalization, and now, more or less every state, mostly it's, you can get the, THC sort of, whether it has THC or not, but marijuana-based products at the corner store these days, right? So I think that the information on it is just starting to emerge, and which is also why I'm not cavalier with recommending those things, because I definitely see situations where they make a big difference, but I don't think they're the right solution for everyone.
Well, yeah, but I'm just curious because I feel like the endocannabinoid system was there and they knew about it. They just didn't educate or teach us about it at the, for whatever reason. So I do think that I don't know anything about it. I do have CBD oil, that I take when I remember, but it's not like, that's something I feel like I want to learn more about. So I know the listeners are all about the weight gain. So what tips or tricks would you want them to learn to help themselves in their weight loss journey?
The first tip I would ask people to internalize is really around their perspective or mindset. And that is really getting clear on your why. In other words, do a little time traveling. If you could time travel to the future, let's just say the 5-year future, and stand in that 5-year future and pretend in this 5-year future, your weight is just handled. Like it's handled. You get dressed in the morning, you put on your clothes, whatever clothes you want to wear, you feel great, you move about your day. What is it like to be you in this 5-year future? And so I invite your listeners to answer that question. With your weight handled, what becomes available? And when I engage in this conversation with the people who I work with, the things I hear back, sometimes people, earlier today, I said to a woman, it's okay, you can cry. A lot of people cry in these conversations, right? Because people get present to how much time and energy and suffering has been given to this area of their life. And at a certain point, people are like, oh my God, my life is supposed to be about so much more than this, right? And in getting present to that is useful, because you can start to see, okay, if this were handled, what would I give my head and heart to? What would I give my life to? So that's the first thing. And really, said simply, it's connecting to your why, getting clear on your why and getting connected to your why. And then the next thing I would invite your listeners to answer is, what is one action or a few actions perhaps, but no more than 3, that would move me towards that future, right? And it might be, you might know, okay, for a lot of people, some people, it could start with sleep, right? They know they're not making choices to support their health because they haven't yet found a way to prioritize their sleep. And so, they're on the blood sugar roller coaster because they're sleep deprived, which alters people's ability to keep their blood sugar stable. It also leads to cravings, which wreak havoc on blood sugar stability. There's so much we could say about that, but needless to say, for you, the listener, there are so many places you could see as an opportunity, but just start where you are and choose 2 new actions that could make a difference to you, could lead you to that 5-year future. One of them might be, I need to go get some labs done because I have no idea what my fasting insulin is or what my HSCRP is. That would be a totally valid action. And, the third encouragement would be for all of you to start to engage in a conversation with yourself called, what is the best choice I could make right now? What is the best choice I could make right now? In each of those words is really important. I don't care about what your friend is doing. I don't care about what your partner is doing. I care about you making the best choice you can make right now. And so that question answered and lived over and over and over again, it really is amazing what shows up, what people are able to take on. It's one of the core things that helps people ditch the old, broken, all or nothing perspective, right? People that are like Whole30 or bust, right? And, dry January, all those things. I'm not criticizing those approaches. I would just suggest that if you see a habit in your life where you do the Whole30 and then on day 31, you're drinking a bottle of wine and a deep dish pizza, maybe that approach needs a reassessment, right? And so really looking at, okay, if you just played a better game every day, wow, that would get you a whole lot farther than a Whole30 once a year.
Mm-hmm. And I think listening to your body, like I have an example of that for me today is that, so I've always said I need to fast once a week. Well, I don't know why I need to fast once a week, but I just made that up. And so I thought, okay, I've always said Wednesday's my day off of CrossFit. I'm going to do like fasting Wednesday, blah, blah, blah. And then I went to CrossFit anyways today. And I thought my body's hungry. It wants some protein. And so, but I had this whole conversation in my head, like, well, you're not supposed to eat today. Well, why am I not supposed to eat today? Well, because you said you weren't gonna, all this bullshit, right?
Yes.
But it's like, the reason I'm sharing this is because our bodies, we need to feed them. And if you want to fast for a reason and that's what you really, really, really want to do, we do the things we prefer to do. But if your goal is something different, but I'm with you. Like when I am too strict with myself and I'm like, oh, I need to not eat. Well, that just goes back to my old eating disorder days that I don't need to ever revisit. But it's that loop in your head that you just play, So I made a better choice and my body was hungry. So I ate my eggs and avocado and I always have some kimchi with it. Vegan kimchi, because I don't like the fish sauce. And then I felt like really good, so, but yeah, I'm with you on that. Too much deprivation and going off the rails is just not healthy.
Yes, definitely. And, also being gentle with ourselves when we make mistakes, like, oh gosh, I now in retrospect, I see I really should have eaten. I'm going to learn from that, right? I can trust that voice that says, okay, yeah, fuel is what's called for at this moment.
And just listening to your body. So I think that's good. Okay. So I think you hit 3. Did you have more that you wanted to cover?
Oh my goodness. I'll stop there. There's always more, right? But I think those are, really getting clear on your why, and not just once, but actually reminding yourself daily, because people will say, oh, I want to lose weight, and maybe they know what weight they want to weigh, the number on the scale. Maybe they know the size of clothes they want to wear. But when people really get honest with themselves, it has nothing to do with the number on the scale or the clothes size, right? It really has to do mostly for feeling fully connected to others, for experiencing love of self, love of others, and for being a contribution in this life. Like, if we really break it down, those are typically what people really want to be able to access, and that extra weight feels like a barrier to that, right? So getting really what it's about changes how people relate to the choices. You versus the deep dish pizza, or whatever someone's, kryptonite is. Eventually the deep dish pizza is going to win if that's the conversation. But the deep dish pizza versus a future defined by confidence, self-love, and empowerment, totally different conversation.
And it's being mindful to remind yourself of that situation when you're in the middle of it too, right?
Yes. And also, in service of playing your best game, saying like, okay, I'm going to have 1 piece of deep dish pizza instead of 3. And I'm also going to make sure it's packed full of vegetables, and I'm going to start with a salad. Maybe that for you is your best game. I don't know, but you do. I trust that you know.
I'll tell you, I was having some irregular heartbeats, and like it would last for a few hours, and it would just be up and down, up and down, up and down. And long story short, it went away when I changed like some new supplements, and I got off of dairy, and I got really, really, really strict with sugar again. Yeah. Then when my son came home for Christmas, I got sloppy, and I had some See's candy, and I had some dairy, and it came back. Went off the sugar and the dairy again, and was really regimented about my supplements, and it went away again. So that is my motivation, that I am not eating pizza. I am not eating dessert, because I don't want to feel that way again.
And isn't that great to see? I mean, it's like, it's useful to actually have that experience again and be reminded and say, hell no, I don't want to feel like crap. Like, no, I'm not doing that to myself.
Exactly. And to remind to the listeners that sometimes food has that impact on you. And so pay attention to what you're eating and how you're feeling, because there will be correlations that you can often spot.
Oh, absolutely. And that's really well said, Tracy. It just brought to mind a couple of women who I've worked with recently who came to me, this is within the last year and a half or so, with dizziness was one of their things, and they'd done all the right workups, right? They were, there was no disease state present. Great. Their heart was healthy, nothing going on in their brain. We want to know those things. That's great news, but they were still left feeling dizzy and without answers. And fundamentally speaking, they each had different things, but it all was related to their diet. And so it's like, it's so fun. Actually, one of them was related to parasites. Now that I say it, think about it. Yes, one was related to parasites, and 2 were related to nutrition. It's so cool to see when the body, when those things are handled. One of them I talked to earlier today, I was like, no, still no more dizziness. And she's like, still no more dizziness. Great.
Wow. Isn't that beautiful when something like that, you must have fun, like a little, inspector trying to figure this out, like a little puzzle.
Oh my gosh, for sure, Tracy. I talk about it like I feel like I'm a detective, and it's so much fun. When I get a notification that lab work is available, it's like it doesn't matter what time of day it is. I'm accessing it and I'm looking at it, and I'm, starting to put the puzzle together for the person. It's really fun.
So what about wellness? Like, do people ever come to you just for like a wellness check, or is it only if they're feeling sick?
Yeah, absolutely. I will have people who come to see me who say, listen, I feel great. I want to make sure my numbers reflect vitality. I want to see if are there any opportunities you see in my numbers that would make a difference? And with all the people who I work with, I also have them work off of a shared Google tracker. So they track their nutrition and I pop in and out, which is great. It's great for a few reasons. One is people learn things they can't learn any other way through that tracking, right? There's just, I was talking to someone yesterday who said, I had no idea. She said, I would have said I was a very healthy eater. And now I see how often I eat lower quality foods. I wasn't present to how often I was doing it, right? Which is great. That was, this is an exercise in mindfulness to some extent. So she was able to see that. And then also for me, when I'm able to go in and say, okay, let's see where we can grab a piece of low-hanging fruit and get spiral up benefits from it, right? If we shift this to that, you're going to be stabilizing your blood sugar. You're going to have less cravings. So you're not going to want that afternoon snack. And, like looking at how one shift in actions can benefit a lot of other things and help people come up with strategies, right? Because right now in the inherited paradigm, the one strategy that people have is control, right? It's control and self-discipline. And they're very delicate, right? Self-discipline is a very delicate tool. Yes, sometimes we need it. But if it's the only tool you have, it's only going to be a matter of time before that tool breaks. So we've got to come up with some real strategies that really reduce how often you need that tool, like have it be the exception and not the rule.
Yeah, I like that. It's like what I always call compliance versus commitment, like I'm committed, especially now that I saw how fast I slipped back into that symptom. I'm not eating sugar. I can have people around me everywhere eating dessert and I'm fine.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I like that. So you do see wellness. And then another question is, how can people find you, set up appointments with you, and see what they need to work on for themselves?
Yeah. So people can find me at wellempowered.com, and please feel free to schedule a complimentary consultation. I'd love to connect with any of your listeners and learn a little bit more about you and explore the possibility of working together. And it's my pleasure to offer anyone who's listening to this podcast 10% off if you mention that you heard about Well Empowered through this conversation today. And then also on social media at Well Empowered on Instagram is the best place to find me.
Awesome. That's a great word. Well empowered. I mean, I am all about the powerful woman. And one of my things that I always say, helping women age stronger and healthier. It's because strength is so broad as far as like physical, mental, emotional. And, I was raised, unlike you, by a very weak mother. Of course, she did the best she could with what she knew at the time. But it's like, I don't know, I find it's really important to have women be strong and stand in their own truth,
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, you are absolutely lovely, Jessie, and I'm so happy you came on the show today. It's just been a pleasure. I definitely want to connect with you to run labs. I haven't been to a doctor since I don't know, before I quit my last job, 2019 sometime.
All right. Awesome. Yeah, that would be a pleasure. I'm sure they look beautiful and I'd love to see them.
Well, it depends. It's like last time, because of the way I eat, I eat a lot of eggs. We have chickens and I live on a farm. But I don't eat any sugar. I mean, I'm really good with all of that. So I know that my last time I had my labs done, my triglycerides were lower than my HDL. But by a typical doctor, they'll be like, oh, your total cholesterol is too high. You need to go on meds. And I'm like, ain't happening.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but I haven't had labs run in a really long time. So I'm just curious to see. So
definitely. Absolutely.
I'm serious. I will definitely reach out to you. So
well, it's been such a pleasure being with you, Tracy, and your audience here. You're doing great work here. I love what you're creating and providing.
Well, thank you, my darling. Have a super day, and I'll be in touch.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed that interview. I'm definitely going to contact Dr. H for my lab work to see what I can do to fine-tune my life. And please visit her website at wellempowered.com. If you mention High Energy Girl, then you'll get a 10% off discount. So thank you for watching and make it a great day. Bye now. This podcast contains the opinion and thoughts of its host and guests. It is intended to provide helpful and informative material on the subjects covered. All statements made on the podcast have not been evaluated by the FDA and are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent disease. If the listener requires professional assistance or advice, please contact your personal medical doctor. Both host and guest specifically disclaim any responsibility for any liability, loss, or risk, personal or otherwise, which is incurred as a consequence directly or indirectly of the use and application of any of the contents of these episodes. Like I said, this is my opinion and I could be wrong.